I'm 78. These 4 talks changed my life. Don't wait like I did. Have you ever had one of those quiet mornings, sitting with your cup of coffee, maybe watching the birds outside or flipping through the newspaper, and suddenly your mind drifts to a moment you wish you could relive, or maybe rewrite? A conversation you meant to have, but didn't? Or one you wish had gone a little differently? It happens more than we like to admit. We reach a certain age, and we start thinking not just about the future, but about what we might leave unsaid. Maybe it's something with your kids, or a conversation with your spouse you've been putting off, or even something you've been needing to say to yourself. That's what today's video is all about, because there are a few conversations that matter more than we realize until it's too late. And the regret? It comes fast. The good news is, it's not too late right now. You still have time, and that's a gift. So today, let's talk about the 4 essential conversations every senior needs to have, honest, heartfelt talks that can bring peace, clarity, and even joy into the years ahead. And no, this isn't about being dramatic or gloomy. Quite the opposite. It's about taking control of your time, your relationships, and your legacy, so that when your head hits the pillow at night, you know you've said what needed saying and lived fully. Let's start with the first one, and it's a big one, the conversation with your adult children about your wishes. Now, I know, this one can be tricky. A lot of folks tell me, "Oh, my kids don't want to talk about that." Or, "I don't want to burden them with all that stuff." But here's the truth, not having the conversation is exactly what creates the burden. Imagine something happens, an illness, an accident, or just the slow progression of age. Decisions need to be made. And without your voice, your kids are left guessing, and that's where regret creeps in for everyone. So what does this talk look like? It's not just about wills or funeral plans. It's about sharing what matters to you. Do you want to stay at home as long as possible? What kind of medical care do you feel comfortable with or not comfortable with? Who do you trust to make decisions on your behalf if you can't? When my neighbor Carol had this talk with her kids, she told me afterward, "I thought it would be awkward. But you know what? It brought us closer." They thanked me. Said they felt more at ease knowing what I want. And that's the thing, your family doesn't want to guess. They want to honor your wishes. But first, they have to know them. And don't be afraid to bring a little humor into it. You can say, "I'm not going anywhere yet, but let's have a little just-in-case talk so you're not running around stressed later." Keep it light if you need to, but have it. Now, let's move to the second conversation, and this one might surprise you, the conversation with yourself about unfinished dreams. When we think about what seniors need to say before it's too late, we often focus on others. But what about you? When was the last time you asked yourself, "What haven't I done yet that still matters to me?" Maybe it's something small. Learning how to paint. Finally writing those memoirs. Taking that trip you've dreamed of since you were 40. Or maybe it's something deeper, like forgiving yourself for a past mistake, or letting go of an old grudge that's taken up too much space in your heart. See, age doesn't mean the end of dreams, it means the freedom to choose what really matters. And having an honest talk with yourself can be one of the most powerful things you do. Sit down somewhere quiet. Maybe out on the porch or by the fireplace. No distractions. Just you and your thoughts. Ask yourself, what do I still want to feel proud of? Then listen. The answer might surprise you. A friend of mine, Don, he was 73 when he finally started learning the guitar. Said he'd wanted to since he was 16, but life kept getting in the way. When I asked him why he started now, he laughed and said, "Because I finally had the conversation with the only person who'd been holding me back, me." Isn't that something? So if you're watching this right now, I want to ask you, what conversation do you need to have with yourself? What part of your story hasn't been told yet? You don't have to change the world. You just have to change your world a little. And it starts with listening to that quiet voice inside you that says, "Hey, it's not too late." And as you begin to open up these conversations, with your family, with yourself, you'll notice something else happens. A lightness. A sense of calm. A quiet confidence that says, I'm living true to who I am and what matters to me. So, take a breath. Maybe this is the moment to start. Maybe you've been waiting for a sign, and this little video, this conversation right here, is it. Because now that we've opened the door to the first two conversations, the ones with your loved ones, and the one with your own heart, it's time to go a little deeper. Because while it's important to know what you want, and to speak that out loud to yourself and your family, there's another layer to this. One that's just as vital, and maybe even more emotional. I'm talking about the conversation with someone you've grown distant from. Now, this one can be tender. Maybe it's a sibling you haven't spoken to in years. Maybe a lifelong friend where something, no one even remembers what, caused a rift. Maybe it's someone from your past, even a child or grandchild, where the connection feels like it's faded to almost nothing. And maybe you're thinking, it's been too long, or, they probably don't want to hear from me. But here's the thing, time doesn't heal everything. Sometimes, it just buries things. And what's buried doesn't go away, it just waits. And if you're honest, you might feel that weight still resting on your shoulders. We don't need to carry that. Sometimes all it takes is a simple message, a card, a phone call, even a voicemail. Something that says, I've been thinking about you. I'd like to reconnect if you're open to it. That's it. No grand speeches. No pressure. Just an open hand. You don't have to fix the past in one conversation. But reaching out says, I care enough to try. And whether they respond or not, you will know you did your part. That's peace. That's closure. Or, if you're lucky, it could be the beginning of something beautiful, a relationship rekindled in the golden years, stronger than before. I remember hearing about a woman named Linda who wrote a letter to her younger sister after 30 years of silence. The letter wasn't dramatic. Just honest. She said, I miss what we used to have. I don't remember why we stopped talking, but I remember laughing with you. I'd love to talk again, even just once. Her sister called the next day. They talked for 3 hours. Today? They speak every Sunday. So, ask yourself, is there someone you've drifted from who still lingers in your heart? Someone you could reach out to, even gently? There's no shame in being the one who makes the first move. In fact, it's one of the bravest things you can do. Because no matter how old we get, connection still matters. And it's never too late for a second chance. Now, the last conversation we'll talk about today is one that gets overlooked far too often. It's not with a doctor or a lawyer or even a family member. It's the conversation with your spouse or partner, or if you're single, with someone close about how you want to spend the time you have left together. Not in a grim way, but in a deeply intentional one. Think about it. For decades, many of us were focused on work, raising kids, paying bills, surviving the chaos of life. And suddenly, we blink, and we're in this phase where we can slow down, but we're not always sure how. We haven't always talked about it. What do you want this next chapter to look like? If you're married or in a long-term relationship, maybe it's time to ask each other, what would make you happiest in these next 10 years? Or even, what are we still dreaming of that we haven't done yet? Sometimes the answer is surprising. I knew a couple, Jack and Maria, who'd been married for 48 years. One afternoon, over a game of cards, Maria casually said she wished they had danced more over the years. Jack just looked at her and said, well, why don't we start now? From then on, every Sunday evening, they put on music and danced in their living room. Just the two of them. That's what I'm talking about. These conversations don't need to be serious or sad. They can be fun, exciting, even playful. Talk about places you'd love to visit, yes, even if it's just the local lake. Talk about what you want your daily routine to feel like. Maybe you want more quiet mornings together. Maybe you want to volunteer side by side. Maybe you want to get a dog. The point is to speak the dreams out loud, so that they don't stay trapped inside as wishes or maybe someday thoughts. And if you're single, this conversation is just as important. Find someone close, a friend, a sibling, a neighbor, and talk about your hopes, your plans, and even your fears. There's something healing about letting another person into your inner world. It reminds you that you're not walking through this stage of life alone. We often think we know what our loved ones want, and they think they know what we want, but until we sit down and say it clearly, out loud, there's room for confusion and even resentment. So give each other the gift of clarity, of vision, of shared dreams. And maybe, just maybe, you'll discover that this stage of life is not about winding down, but about finally living in a way that feels fully, deeply you. These conversations aren't always easy. Some might bring tears. Some might feel uncomfortable at first. But all of them lead to the same place, relief. Relief that you've said what needed to be said, asked what needed to be asked, and truly connected with the people who matter most. So take that first step. Whether it's a phone call, a quiet chat over coffee, or a heartfelt letter, begin one of these conversations this week. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be honest. Because the only thing worse than saying the wrong thing is saying nothing at all and living with the silence. And as we open our hearts to these conversations, we start to feel something shift. Less weight. More lightness. Less doubt. More direction. Let's keep walking this path together. Let's keep walking this path together. Because once you've had those heartfelt talks, with your family, with yourself, with someone you've grown distant from, and with a partner or trusted friend, there's one more thing to consider. It's not exactly a conversation in the traditional sense, but it's just as important. Maybe even more so. It's the quiet reflection on your legacy, and what you want to leave behind, not just in material things, but in memories, in lessons, in love. See, we spend so much of life chasing after the next thing, the next goal, the next crisis that needs our attention. But as the pace slows down, many of us begin to ask the big questions. What was it all for? What will people remember when I'm gone? What do I hope they remember? Now, this isn't about being famous or having your name on a plaque. Legacy doesn't need to be loud. Some of the most powerful legacies are found in the small moments. The smell of your apple pie recipe that your granddaughter bakes every Thanksgiving. The way your son still repeats that funny phrase you used to say when life got tough. The story you told over and over that your family knows by heart because it made them feel connected to you. Legacy is about living in such a way that when people think of you, their heart softens. They smile. They feel safe. They feel loved. But that kind of legacy doesn't happen by accident. It comes from living with intention, and sometimes that means taking a moment, right now, today, to ask yourself, what do I still want to say? What stories haven't I shared yet? What part of me do I want the people I love to carry with them long after I'm gone? You don't need to write a book unless you want to. You don't have to film a documentary. Maybe you just sit down and write a few letters to the people who matter most. Or record a short voice memo. Or even better, sit across from someone you love and say, I want to tell you something while I still can. Tell them what they mean to you. Tell them about the mistakes you learned from. The things you wish you'd done differently, and the things you're most proud of. Tell them about the people who shaped you. The moments that changed you. The fears you had and the courage you found anyway. We all have a story. And the older we get, the more wisdom we carry. But wisdom that's never shared? It's like a gift that stays in the box. And don't worry about sounding perfect. Sometimes the most powerful stories are the simplest ones. Like why you always made your bed in the morning. Or how you stayed married through the hard years. Or what kept you going on the days when you wanted to give up. Your life is full of these little treasures. All it takes is the courage to pass them on. I once met a man named Harold who kept a small notebook by his favorite chair. Every morning, he wrote down a short story from his life, sometimes just a paragraph. He wasn't trying to be profound. He just wanted to leave a little something behind for his grandkids. When he passed, that notebook became one of the most treasured things his family owned. Not because it was fancy, but because it was him, in his own words. Real, raw, and full of heart. So maybe you start a notebook of your own, or a box of letters, or maybe you just start saying the things out loud, more often, more openly, while you still have the time. And here's the thing, legacy isn't only about what happens after you're gone. It's also about what you do now. Every hug, every apology, every I love you or I'm proud of you is part of it. So often we wait for the right moment, for someone else to bring it up, for a feeling of readiness. But life doesn't hand us those perfect moments. We create them. Sometimes in the middle of a messy kitchen or during a walk around the block or over a phone call that starts with, "Hey, I was just thinking about you." Don't wait for the perfect moment. Let this be it. You've made it this far in life, and that alone is incredible. You've endured loss. You've celebrated victories. You've carried burdens no one else knows about. And you've kept going. Now, you get to decide what kind of closing chapter you want to write. Let it be full of meaning. Let it be full of laughter. Let it be full of connection. Because no matter how many years you have ahead of you, and I hope it's many, there's no better time than now to live boldly, speak truthfully, and love deeply. And if you're still wondering, where do I start? Just pick one small thing. One phone call. One letter. One conversation over tea. That's all it takes. The rest will follow. You are not too old. You are not too late. And your story is not finished. So if something's been stirring in your heart while we've been talking, follow that feeling. It's leading you somewhere good. And hey, if this conversation touched something in you, I'd love to hear about it. Share your thoughts down below, your hopes, your lessons, your stories. You never know who might be inspired by what you have to say. And if you found value in this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. We've got more conversations coming, more stories, more wisdom, more reminders that life after 60 is still full of meaning and magic. Here's to living your truth, to saying what matters, and to knowing, deep in your bones, that it's never too late to have the conversations that bring you peace. You've got this.